The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. In modern life, we often believe that we must constantly move, meet people, and participate in various social activities to be considered living life to the fullest or successful. But perhaps you've also felt the fatigue, the pressure, or those moments of failure that make everything around you seem too noisy, too overwhelming. You wonder, am I running after someone else's life instead of living to the rhythm of my own? Stoic philosophy points to a different path. It is not in the chaos, but in moments of stillness, in hours spent alone, that you truly encounter yourself. At home, away from external disturbances, you learn how to observe your mind, to train your reason, and to control your emotions. This is not about escaping, it's about consciously building your inner strength, preparing for steady steps when you return to the world. This video will show you why staying home is the best choice for building resilience, finding peace, and truly maturing in the spirit of Stoicism. Let's journey to the end to discover how to transform quiet time into inner strength, a place where you can stand firm in the face of pressure and find true meaning in life. 1. Stay home to separate yourself from the noise. You don't need to wander across the city, nor show up at every party, every bar, or every meetup, just to feel like you are living. At home, in your own space, you finally face yourself and can hear your inner voice amidst the world's sea of noise. This is not escapism, nor is it failure. It is a conscious choice, a powerful decision that most modern people have forgotten. Living in today's society, you are pulled by the voices of others, job pressures, feedback, and strange standards. Stepping outside means wearing a different mask. Even in your car, you're bombarded by social media news, opinions, and ideals. Arriving at work, you face more directions, judgments, and comparisons. Gradually, you lose sight of what you truly think or want. Everything becomes a habitual reaction, running with the crowd, struggling not to be left behind. I used to be like that. Long days, waking up with the feeling I was late for something important I couldn't quite name. My calendar is packed, my phone buzzing endlessly. On weekends, I would wander with friends just to kill time, but I felt empty and alone. I lived by others' expectations until one day I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. When you stay home, you escape the noise. It's not just about closing doors, locking up, or switching off your phone, but about letting go of all demands, voices, and attention from others. There is no acting, no race to run, no need to prove anything. Sit quietly, listen to your heartbeat, feel your breath, and observe each thought. Marcus Aurelius called this retreat into yourself. There is no place more peaceful than the soul within you. Secondly, you begin to hear your own voice. At first, the silence may feel unsettling or empty, but that is your opportunity to distinguish which thoughts are truly yours and which are the product of social pressure. Epictetus once taught, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." At home, you can see all your worries, stresses, and expectations and begin to filter. What is truly yours? What must you let go of? Thirdly, you make better decisions. How many times have you acted out of fear of judgment or stayed in relationships just to avoid being left out? At home, you have space to ask yourself, is this really necessary? If not, you have the right to say no. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." At home, you learn how to protect your energy, devote attention to what truly matters: family, passion, self-development. Fourthly, you build a haven. A house isn't just for eating and sleeping. If used right, it becomes a dojo, a place for inner training. Every day you observe your emotions, recognize negative thoughts, practice silence when a reaction isn't needed, and focus on important tasks. You set healthy boundaries. Work doesn't invade, social media doesn't control, and meaningless conversations don't drain your energy. This is how you build self-mastery. No one else can do this for you. Fifth, you become stronger in solitude. Many people fear the feeling of being left out when nobody calls, messages, or needs them. But by daring to be alone, you develop real strength. You learn to accept every emotion, not run away or pretend. You train your capacity to endure and to think independently. You realize being alone isn't a weakness. Only those who fear facing themselves are weak. I used to avoid silence, afraid of facing myself. But when I chose to stay home, I discovered this is where healing happens. Energy is restored, and personal growth takes place without having to prove anything to anyone. I read, kept a journal, cared for my health, learned new skills, organized my living space, and structured my routines. Gradually, things became clearer, my mind less chaotic, my emotions no longer controlled by others. Each day I remind myself, let go of whatever is out of your control. The greatest mistake for most is to believe that you must merge into the noise, be everywhere, and stay busy to have value. In truth, only by withdrawing and protecting your stillness can you hear your true inner voice. Most are swept away by public opinion. The Stoic trains himself to remain steady amidst the flow of life. This is how you master your emotions, actions, and destiny. You don't need to control the world. You only need to control your reactions. Staying home is the first step toward this focus. In stillness, you see problems clearly, choose the right action, and avoid being swept into pointless arguments. You consciously choose how to live and react. No one can hurt you unless you allow it. You have the right to choose, to reshape habits, set boundaries, and build a safe space for your soul. Turn your home into a dojo, a place for discipline, for recovery, for daily rebirth. Inner freedom isn't granted by anyone else. It comes from discipline, from daring to stay home, maintaining silence, and living honestly with yourself. The world may be noisy, but within you there can always be peace if that is truly what you want. 2. Cultivating discipline. Have you noticed? Most people are always making excuses to stay busy. Every day they tell themselves, just a little more work, then scroll their phones, read the news, chat, go for coffee, jumping from one job to the next party. It seems like living fully, but in reality, it's just running from their own inner silence. They fear sitting still, facing their mind, and confronting the thoughts that are usually drowned out by all sorts of stimulation. I saw this most clearly in Ron, my close friend, whom I once thought was the model of dynamism. Ron always showed up at the right place, was witty, and was liked by everyone. One time I dropped by his house unannounced. He sat quietly on the sofa, gazing out the window, with no TV on, no phone in hand, only listening to the ticking clock. I asked, "Why are you home today, not going out?" Ron smiled, trying to see if I can survive sitting still. It turned out that a few months earlier, Ron realized his life was just a series of reflexive actions. If free, he had to meet up, entertain, keep busy to avoid facing himself. He said, "Sometimes I don't even remember the last time I really focused on something important." In the beginning, staying home felt like withdrawal, boredom, anxiety, emptiness. But after pushing through, he began to notice the small things he used to miss: reading, cooking, observing each step, each breath. He found he could control his attention, no longer easily pulled in by everything around him. There's a quote by Seneca that Ron likes to repeat: "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Ron learned to focus on a single task, making small commitments to himself. Read for 30 minutes each night. Don't check his phone after 9 p.m. Journal for 15 minutes a day. The things that seem simplest were actually the hardest for someone always on the move. We often confuse being busy with having discipline. Busy people let life pull them along, reacting to what's outside. Disciplined people choose what to focus on, not allowing themselves to be distracted by the immediate. Staying home is your chance to practice this. No one is making you act. There's no social pressure, no supervisor. You are totally free, and that's when your discipline is truly tested. There were evenings Ron felt he would go mad from a sense of missing out, fearing he was left behind. But instead of rushing out, he decided to sit with the feeling. First came irritation, then anxiety, then emptiness. Finally, a sense of peace emerged. True discipline isn't forcing yourself to do something grand. It's being able to endure boredom, procrastination, and negative feelings without giving in. Hearing Ron's story, I looked at myself. How many times had I used busyness to avoid discomfort, negative emotions, or worries about the future? I realized how easily I too could be swept away, procrastinate, and tell myself, tomorrow will do. Lack of discipline isn't laziness. It's being unwilling to face yourself, lacking the patience to endure discomfort. Real discipline is keeping your focus, sticking with what you need to do, no matter the noise or temptation. Stoicism teaches you to distinguish between what is in your control and what isn't. You can't control how the world is always alluring, nor how others appear dazzling. But you can control every minute you dedicate to yourself, every small choice you make each day. At home, you practice this. No one praises or criticizes. You are the master of your own game. Gradually, Ron was no longer the man who needed to be out there to feel alive. He found confidence in planning, finishing, and taking responsibility for small things. The nights at home were not always fun. Sometimes lonely, sometimes he wanted to quit. But with patience, he built a new layer of discipline. The discipline of a free man, not out of fear of judgment, but to keep promises to himself. Every man should try staying home long enough to experience this. At first, you'll feel restless, unable to focus, your mind wanting to run for entertainment. Let it pass. Don't fight it. Don't rush to fill the void. Staying home is the simplest test of self-control. You make your own schedule, do each small task, learn to say no to the easy, to procrastination, to makeshift habits. Only when you dare to sit still and focus on one thing will you know what true mastery feels like. After some time, focus returns, patience grows, and your ability to delay gratification improves. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Mastering your time and attention, You become self-possessed in all circumstances. A mature person is one strong enough to stay home, to practice discipline in every small action. True maturity doesn't need certification, doesn't need to be flaunted. It changes you quietly, but durably. Today, try staying home for once. Turn off notifications, sit down, and focus on completing a simple task. Write down your feelings. Dare to accept discomfort. This is the first step to training discipline, a step most people will never know. And remember, only when you dare to stand still by yourself will you truly move to the rhythm of your own life. 3. Recognize and rise above negative relationships. You never truly know who your friends are and who drags you down until you are willing to sit quietly with yourself. In the noisy society around us, we often nod, smile politely, and maintain relationships simply out of familiarity, not genuine value. The world out there is loud, bustling, and busy. But it's exactly this busyness that leaves you no time to notice how much of your energy is actually spent on those who truly deserve it. Everyone has experienced walking away from a gathering or a night out, feeling heavy-headed and exhausted inside. Sometimes it's thoughtless jokes, sometimes indirect criticism, or simply fake closeness. Day after day you accept it as normal and tell yourself, everyone has to tolerate friends, colleagues, or family sometimes. But eventually you realize negative relationships don't just take your time. They steal your confidence, your peace, and your vitality. When you dare to stay home, when you dare to spend time with yourself, only then can you distinguish who is sincere and who only seeks you out when they need something. This separation is not indifference or arrogance, it's an act of reason. You no longer fear turning down an invitation or being swept up in social obligations. In your own space, you look back on every relationship, every conversation, every lingering feeling after each meeting. You begin to see who makes you feel small, who compares, criticizes, or manipulates you. Some people, just thinking about them is enough to make you tired. That's a sign they don't belong in the close circle you want to keep. As the philosopher Zeno of Citium once said, man conquers the world by conquering himself. Only by mastering yourself can you be clear-headed enough to choose who truly deserves to accompany you on your path of growth. Think back to the times you tried to please others, prove your worth, only to feel drained and lose your sense of value. That's the price you pay for not maintaining distance from negative relationships. You have the right to choose, but if you don't pause, you'll let others shape who you become. Staying home is the time to audit your list of friends, your conversations, and the social promises you never wanted to keep. You ask yourself, why do I have to be there? What does this person truly bring to me other than pressure, envy, or insecurity? When distance is established, you can clearly see who wants you to grow and who only wants to keep you in your comfort zone. Some people come into your life just to test your inner strength. They could be childhood friends, old colleagues, relatives, or those you thought would always be there for you. But if every time you meet them you have to pretend, suppress your feelings, or endure criticism, that's no longer a healthy relationship. The sooner you see it, the less you will be hurt. Sometimes you must proactively choose to stay home instead of running out to make up for a relationship that has lost its meaning. At home, you reward yourself with quiet, with autonomy. You read, exercise, and take care of yourself. You ask, if I didn't spend time with these people, what would I do for myself? The answer comes when you dare to try, dare to break free from the invisible bonds of society, family, or old friends. Keeping your distance does not mean closing your heart or giving up compassion. On the contrary, it allows you to cherish the relationships that truly matter. When you consciously select, you build a close circle that is small but deep. You stay with people who want you to grow, who want you to live true to your values, not those who use you as a pedestal for their own confidence. Every time you stay home, you reinforce an invisible but vital boundary, the boundary that protects your inner peace. Out there, everyone wants to pull you into cycles of argument, comparison, proving, and even jealousy. But at home, you are the master of your own space. You don't have to explain, prove, or respond to anyone's expectations but your own. Remember the times you were drawn into unnecessary arguments, dragged into plans you didn't want, just because you feared displeasing others or being seen as different. Without time at home to self-reflect, it all builds up fatigue, hurt, and insecurity. You don't realize the impact until you dare to stop. Start today. Try one evening at home. Don't text. Don't accept invitations just for the sake of it. Don't try to fit in. Simply sit. Listen to your feelings after a long day. If you feel a pang when thinking of someone or anxiety at the thought of seeing them, ask yourself, do I really need to maintain this relationship? Does it give me anything besides fatigue and insecurity? Protecting your inner peace isn't selfish. It's your responsibility to yourself. When you know your boundaries, know who deserves your time and energy, you live more deeply, more powerfully, and most importantly, you maintain true freedom in your mind. Staying home is not running away. It's a smart step back to move forward. You choose your circle, build self-trust, nurture healthy relationships, and leave behind what no longer fits. That's how you rise above negative relationships, live by your true values, and protect your inner peace, the kind that only you can grant yourself. 4. Develop emotional independence. Developing emotional independence may sound lofty, but it is truly the foundation of a stable, peaceful, and strong life from within. No one teaches you this at school, and society doesn't encourage it. Social media teaches people how to please others, how to live for external validation. But when you choose to stay home, to distance yourself from the noise of society, you begin to learn the greatest lesson of all, how to fill your own life without needing anyone else. The first time I read Epictetus, I realized freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, but not being bound by emotions, judgments, or expectations from outside. Staying home is not avoiding society. It's about building a strong emotional backbone for yourself. Someone once asked me, "What do you value most in a life partner?" I answered immediately, emotional independence. Emotional independence is not coldness or refusing to help. It is the ability to solve your own problems before expecting anything from others. It is the ability to comfort yourself, heal yourself, create your own joy without clinging or waiting for rescue from outside. How do you achieve this? Not by isolating yourself, and certainly not by telling yourself, "I don't need anyone." It all starts when you accept sitting quietly alone, not trying to fill the emptiness with entertainment, messages, or unnecessary meetings. At home, you become aware of sad days, of loneliness, anxiety, and instead of running, You observe, asking, "What is this emotion telling me about myself?" Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, is a perfect example of emotional independence. He was not only talented, but also optimistic, always able to find his own motivation and joy, regardless of suffering, loss, or challenge. His mother died young, his wife passed away when he was still young. He faced skepticism and criticism, yet he stood firm. Feynman liked to walk alone, play music, journal, and laugh with himself. Emotional independence means not depending on the crowd's approval, not being shaken by praise or blame. Living at home isn't comfortable at first. You may feel left out when everyone else is having fun while you sit quietly in your familiar room. That's a natural response from a mind used to stimulation and attention. But if you are patient enough to stay with yourself, day by day, you'll realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You reward yourself with a good meal, find joy in a book, and take pride in finishing a small task. You don't need anyone to text you or likes to feel the day is meaningful. Emotional independence means you are no longer a slave to fleeting emotions. There's still sadness, anger, loneliness, but you accept, process, and move on without blaming, without avoiding, without needing anyone to comfort you before you can stand up again. That is true maturity. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Each day you practice deep breathing, observe your reactions, recognize that anger is only a passing feeling, and loneliness will fade if you are patient. Emotional independence does not mean cutting yourself off from the world. It is the foundation for healthy relationships. When you are stable inside, you love, share, and give naturally without calculation, without fear of loss. You don't control others, don't impose expectations, don't make anyone responsible for your happiness. Practice it every day in small ways. When ignored, instead of blaming, ask, "Has my value really decreased?" When tired, instead of quick fixes, sit down and ask what you really need. When judged, instead of reacting, observe the feeling and let it pass. That is how you lay a solid foundation for emotional independence. When you build strong inner strength, you are not afraid to lose someone, not afraid of rejection, and not shaken when the world changes. You know true value lies in how you treat yourself. When you're solid, you become your own support, and from there, a better friend, colleague, father, husband for others. That emotional freedom is the greatest reward you can give yourself. When you can stand firmly on your own 2 feet, nothing out there can shake you. And that is the true freedom that only comes when you let go of what isn't yours, master your emotions, and live joyfully, peacefully, and powerfully, even if you are alone in this vast world. 5. Reserve your energy for what truly matters. A home is not just a shelter from the rain and sun, nor is it merely a place for hurried sleep. For those who truly want to grow, who seek to build lasting value, the home becomes a dojo, the deepest training ground for intellect and skill. Only when you dare to be still, to distance yourself from outside distractions, do you really get the chance to listen, reflect, practice, and develop yourself in ways most people out there will never experience. Have you ever realized that your whole day is just a series of distraction waves? The phone vibrates, messages flood in, colleagues invite you out, friends call you to hang out, and social media constantly demands your attention. At first you think it's just light entertainment, then tell yourself, I'll study later. But day after day, month after month, the skills you want to upgrade, the knowledge you want to deepen, all remain stuck in place. You look back and wonder why you're not moving forward, while others seem to leap ahead. It's not because you're inferior, but because you haven't been brave enough to separate yourself from distractions. Everyone wants to learn more, be better, but very few are patient enough to stay home long enough to focus on what truly matters. They fear loneliness, fear missing out, fear being labeled as boring, so they keep chasing crowds, news, and social engagements. The result? Scattered minds, wasted time, undeveloped skills, and unsharpened intellect. Staying home is when you redraw your boundaries. No one controls your time. No one makes you study, practice, write, or perfect every little detail. Everything is your choice. Personal development at home is the key difference between those who just want and those who dare to do. All great thinkers understood this. Philosopher Plato said, "Thinking, the talking of the soul with itself." Sitting quietly at home, uninterrupted, you finally hear your soul's conversation. That's the foundation for all personal progress, from knowledge, skills, to real-world actions. I've met many friends and colleagues who all want to speed up, learn new things, and change themselves. Yet they always complain, "There's no time," or "I can't focus." The truth is, if you don't dare to stay home, if you can't say no to distractions, you can't go deep. Developing a skill is like sharpening a blade. It requires repetition, patience, and the courage to embrace boredom. Sitting down to study for an hour each evening, practicing a small move hundreds of times, and reading one chapter thoroughly instead of skimming, all require the strength to resist outside lures. I once fell into this trap. There was a phase when I thought I was making progress by attending events, listening to podcasts, watching motivational videos, and connecting with all sorts of people. But in the end, I only had surface-level knowledge, nothing in depth. I accumulated social knowledge, but it came at the expense of personal depth. The more socializing, the more news, the farther I strayed from my foundation, my ability to focus and persist toward one goal long enough. One day, I decided to stop, to stay home. I turned off notifications, limited unnecessary outings, and closed every unrelated tab. I chose a philosophy book, read it slowly, took notes, asked myself why the author wrote as they did, and connected it to real life. On the first day, I was restless, wanting to reach for my phone, my eyes drifting elsewhere. But after a week, I realized I was truly absorbing knowledge, starting to think deeply, generating new ideas I'd never had before. The feeling of mastering your time, of being able to focus, of knowing for certain that you're moving forward day by day, even if just a small step, is incredibly empowering. At home, no one judges, no one pressures. You move at your own pace. That's the only way to grow sustainably and create real value. Stoicism teaches that growth is not about chasing the new, but about digging deep into what you've chosen. You don't need to know everything, just be truly good at what you choose. Deep work is the foundation of all great achievements. It doesn't come from talent, but from repetition, reflection, and tuning out the noise. You may have to face the fear of being left behind, the fear of being less, the fear of being called a bookworm or always at home. But ask yourself, do you want a loud life or a deep and powerful one? The difference lies in the small choices you make every day, daring to spend time at home, daring to focus on one skill, daring to practice something until it becomes second nature. Starting today, try to dedicate just 1 hour each day to learning, reading, or practicing. No distractions, no interruptions. It's the safest, most certain investment for your future. Don't miss out on those deep conversations with yourself. That's where every real skill, every true piece of knowledge starts to grow. You don't need to become a genius. Just be persistent, deep, and don't waste your life. This only happens when you dare to separate yourself from distractions, turn your home into a dojo, and go deep within day by day. That's when you'll see yourself grow, feel more confident, with real knowledge and robust skills, regardless of how the outside world changes. This is the result of steadfastness, of making the right choices, and of having the courage not to let yourself get swept away by the world's noise. At home, you control your process, and that is the only way to develop great, lasting skills and knowledge. 6. Preserve your energy for what truly matters. Life energy is a finite resource. The older you get, the more you feel this truth. When we're young, we think we can do everything, show up at every party, every event, always ready to help, throw ourselves into every activity. But as time goes on, you realize every time you rush to join a meaningless party or a social gathering, you're trading away energy that could have been used to build real value for yourself. Today's society encourages busyness and multitasking. Everyone likes to show off a full schedule, ready to take on more, always expanding their network. On the surface, everyone seems to be living their fullest, but if you look deeper, you'll see that many, after weeks of connecting, are left exhausted and empty, with no inspiration left for the things that matter most. Energy gets spread everywhere. Nothing goes deep. No relationship is truly nurtured, and no achievement is great enough to be proud of. I once knew a man like that. He was everywhere: parties, sports, conferences, friend groups. At the start of the week, he was proud of his time management. By the weekend, he was tired, had no energy for family or himself, and had no motivation to study or improve. Outward success was just a facade. He realized he was wearing down bit by bit with small things and relationships that added no real value. Then he began to ask himself, what do I really want to invest my energy in? For the first time, he realized he hadn't set limits. He said yes to every invitation, afraid of being left out, afraid of losing connections, afraid of being labeled as closed off. But when he started staying home, declining meaningless invitations, everything changed. At first, guilt was unavoidable, but soon after, he found his energy was no longer stretched thin. He had time for his wife and kids, for his health, for learning, and most importantly, for himself. At home, you get the chance to look back at what you've missed by letting your energy leak into things that aren't truly important. Maybe you've traded a meaningful evening with your child for drinks with colleagues, just for fun. Maybe you could have learned a new skill, but let time slip away in endless small talk. Sometimes solitude is more bearable than losing yourself in trivial pursuits. A big issue for many men is the fear of being forgotten, of being seen as boring. But in truth, no one remembers someone who's everywhere, but everyone respects the one who preserves their energy, who only appears where it truly matters. Value doesn't lie in the number of relationships you have, but in the strength you bring in being fully present in what matters most. Saying no is never easy, but it is the starting point for all maturity. When you focus on conserving your energy, you become deeper in everything you do, listening attentively to your children, training your health with greater determination, reading and learning more proactively and deeply. By knowing your limits, every moment becomes meaningful. Every action leads to real results. The simple truth: your energy is limited. Every yes to others is a no to yourself, to your family, to your bigger goals in life. When you stay home, you learn to ask, is this worth my energy? If not, do I have the courage to say no? Over time, you'll stop fearing judgment, stop fearing displeasing others. You'll know what's truly important and what's just a passing social temptation. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be closed off, but to know your boundaries. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius once reminded, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Just one question, repeated often enough, will completely change the way you manage your energy, change the quality of all your relationships, and the results you achieve. You don't have to be everywhere to feel valuable. You only need to be fully present in the important places, with family, in the work you love, on your own path of self-growth. Let meaningless invitations and empty pleasures drift away like the wind. That's how you preserve your energy, protect your peace, and live a life that isn't wasted. Starting today, dare to stay home more. Dare to say no to social invitations just for show. Dare to prioritize yourself, your family, and what you truly want to nurture. Life is short, energy is limited. Don't let it leak away into things that don't truly matter. Save it for what makes you proud, what helps you grow, what lets you live deeply. That is the only path to true peace and real achievement, the spirit of a Stoic. 7. Growing stronger in solitude. Loneliness is often labeled as the mark of a loser, an outcast, or someone with issues. But the greatest truth, one not everyone dares to admit, is that what we fear most is not being alone, but not knowing what to do with the silence when there's no one around us. The more modern society becomes, the harder people run from loneliness, burying themselves in work, entertainment, social media, and rushed appointments. But truly, strong people don't just overcome loneliness, they grow from it. I used to be like that. There were times I constantly reminded myself, someone has to be by my side, I have to go out, I have to show up everywhere. Every time I stayed home with no laughter, no one checking in, I felt anxious, afraid I'd be forgotten, as if I had become meaningless. That fear smoldered inside me, haunting me, pushing me to fill every moment with busyness. But it was precisely during those quiet evenings at home, when only silence remained, that I realized something. The fear of loneliness is just a shadow inflated by the mind. When you're patient enough to stay, to sit still without your phone, without the TV, without rushing to find something to do, that's when you finally start to hear the deepest voice inside yourself. That is where it's just you and God face to face. That private space is where you can converse with yourself, speak with the Creator, ask about the meaning of life, and answer with your most honest self. Stoicism does not tell you to run from loneliness. It teaches you to embrace it, to turn loneliness into the foundation upon which inner strength is built. When you're brave enough to sit still, you finally see yourself clearly. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your small joys, your wounds yet to heal. There's no need to perform, to fight for attention, to fear being left behind. True freedom begins the moment you accept being alone and still feel fulfilled. Just as Aristotle once said, "Whosoever is delighted in solitude is either a wild beast or a god." Many confuse loneliness with a lack of love, a lack of care from others. In truth, you can feel lost even in a crowd. True loneliness is when you lose connection with yourself, and the solution isn't to find more people, but to learn how to converse with, accept, and nurture yourself from within. Staying home is the perfect condition to practice this. You need to answer only to yourself and God's expectations for you. No one needs to check in, to agree, to message you. The deepest maturity comes from those moments when you dare to live honestly, dare to face the emptiness, and fill it with your own resolve, faith, and patience. Many ask, if you stay home a lot, live alone, won't you become isolated, become weaker? My answer is always, the person who is lonely and afraid grows weaker by the day, but the one who knows how to enjoy, to observe, to build meaning from the smallest things will grow stronger by the hour. At home, you learn to care for yourself not just physically, but spiritually. Making your own tea, cooking your own meals, planning your own days, talking to God when you need comfort. These are crucial exercises that build character. Don't think you need someone to validate your worth. That value is forged every time you dare to face the fear of loneliness, dare to endure the quiet, dare to stand firm while others chase the crowd. Whisper to God in your heart, "I am here, alone, but not empty." It is in silence that you hear the inner reminders, the quiet encouragement that every person has their own path, and no one else can live your life for you. Stoicism teaches that all external upheavals affect you only if you allow them. When you are strong in solitude, seeing time alone as a chance to grow, to connect with God and yourself, you no longer fear loss, rejection, or judgment, because every true value you need comes from within. The more you stay home, the more you understand what enough truly means. No longer obsessed with validation, no longer worried about others' opinions. You find satisfaction cherishing the present, caring for your body, training your mind, and talking to God as a close friend. This faith isn't for showing off, but to keep you steady through storms. Some will call you distant, closed, different. Don't mind them. Strength does not come from your number of friends, but from your ability to stand firm when only you and God are your audience. When you step outside, you'll realize only those who have grown in solitude, matured in quiet, are confident and calm, not swept away by temptations or knocked down by criticism or indifference. Sometimes staying home is also a time to test your faith, your values, your ideals. Ask yourself, if it's just me and God left, am I proud of myself? Have I lived honestly, been courageous enough, ready to walk alone if needed? The answer gives you the strength to overcome all isolation, emptiness, and challenge. And you'll see, right in your solitude, God is always with you, silently empowering you. Growing strong in solitude is not a destination, but a never-ending journey of training. Every day at home, every quiet moment, every time you dare to face yourself instead of running, you grow a little stronger. When you are strong enough in solitude, you will live confidently, calmly, and peacefully through any storm. Nothing outside can shake you. That is the gift of Stoicism, and also the gift of faith, of silent maturity that no one can take from you. Walk into solitude with courage and steadfast faith, and you will find yourself stronger than ever before. You can't control everything that happens out there, but you can always control how you live, how you think, and how you react. Staying home is the opportunity to train your reason, fortify your energy, and build true inner strength. The core power of being human lies here. You have the right to choose where you invest your time and energy. You have the right to control your attitude in any situation, and you have the right to direct your actions according to your own values. When you understand and practice this, the world no longer controls you. You become the master of yourself. Remind yourself with this sentence: I guard my mind, I master my life. Today's action is simple yet powerful. Spend time just being with yourself. Complete a small task fully. Keep discipline and silence before things that don't require a response. This is how you train your inner strength every day. True freedom does not come from the outside, but from discipline and reason. When you master yourself, you stand strong regardless of all storms, temptations, and pressures from the world.